we're using both wrong. Even when ministries do use brand marketing, they're building brand around a single individual. We're building brand around the wrong thing, around the wrong person. Now, I'm not one to argue that we shouldn't be building brand in the ministry space at all. There's nothing wrong with building brand. I help build brand with people and ministries all the time, as long as it's not with the heart of competition. I want to challenge you to start showcasing what God is doing. I want to challenge you to focus your communications on how God is moving, how he's working to redeem humanity back to himself. He's at work in real people's lives, in your people's lives, and he deserves the glory. He's working in your church differently than the church down the street. He's called your churches to different things, and that's okay, right? We can build brand around those things, but it must be centered and focused on what God is doing, not on what we are doing. What's the difference between brand marketing and direct marketing for ministries in the digital space? And why does the answer to that question matter for the online marketing efforts of your Christian nonprofit or church? That's the idea I want to discuss in today's video. But before we unpack that, let's talk about why it even matters. Why do I care? And why should you care about the marketing and communications approach of the church as it pertains to your digital communications efforts? To answer that, I would say that we should all care because of the opportunities to reach more people and transform lives with the gospel. The opportunities are incredible right now, but by and large, our digital efforts are squandering that opportunity because everything we produce is about us and our organizations. But is that the goal? Is that what we should be striving towards? Most of the content we're creating is promotional in nature, or highlights and focuses on our primary speaking figures. But how effective is that in bringing people to Christ? Seriously, go scroll through your content and count the number of times your content is expressly promotional in nature, i.e. some event coming up. This week's sermon series content with an invitation to come to Sunday service. Maybe it's informative in nature, or maybe it's educational in nature from either your weekly sermon or a podcast that your ministry might be publishing. To how much of your content is explicitly testifying of God's transformational work taking place in your people? How much of your content is created for the sole purpose of bringing God glory through testimony? The content we're producing is all about us, our churches, our organizations, and our ministries. The content we're producing is all about our strategies and models, our data and statistics. If you were to do an audit of your ministry's last year's worth of content, how much of that content is self-serving and promotional in nature? When we actually do brand marketing, it's usually for the sake of building brand around our pastors, right? And the primary public-facing figures in our church or organization. And then we wonder why our churches struggle to encourage and promote the doctrine of the priesthood of all believers. Our theology believes in the priesthood of all believers, but our digital practices do nothing but promote the Western church model that the pulpit is the driving force behind the ministry. And then we wonder why our ministry leaders burn out. If by some chance you're not using brand marketing to build and develop a brand around your primary teaching pastor, you're probably using direct marketing tactics. SEO, pay-per-click, Google ad grants, some kind of content or inbound marketing campaign, or maybe if you're advanced, you're using a felt needs article approach with some kind of free email exchange giveaway where the audience is then spammed to death, being invited to your Sunday service or fed more of your knowledge transfer content, stuff that they didn't probably ask for in the first place. You might even be sending direct mail postcards within your direct marketing behaviors. I started this video posing the question, what's the difference between brand marketing and direct marketing online? First, let's define and discuss the difference between the two. Direct marketing is any marketing that can be measured. In fact, Seth Godin would argue that direct marketing must be measured. Any marketing that's disruptive in nature would fall into this category. Generally speaking, the problem with direct marketing is that it's a race to the bottom, not just on price point, but for our Christian nonprofits and churches, it's a race to relevance. Direct marketing breaks people down into demographics. For Christian nonprofits and churches, the gospel is relevant for all people, across all cultures, and throughout all time. What are we doing spending any time researching and focusing on demographics? At the very least, we need to seriously consider or reconsider and pray about and think through that approach. I think we've too often let worldly business marketing tactics creep into our ministries, and it's dangerous. Seth Godin even says that old school marketers still talk about demographics. And that's a guy mostly addressing the commercial for-profit space. So what is direct marketing? It's our SEO, PPC, social media ads, it's our direct mail campaigns, our plan a visit calls to action on our site. Generally speaking, it's our felt needs articles that have a direct call to action. Although felt needs articles can fall into brand marketing if done well and if done strategically. Direct marketing is anything that is measurable and directly calls our audience to take action. In the Christian nonprofit and church space, we lean heavily into this type of marketing. It's not inherently bad. We just lean too heavily into it. And the problem is that we're being trained to ignore direct marketing. Again, that's a direct quote from Seth Godin. We're being trained to ignore direct marketing. So if that's direct marketing, what's brand marketing? I had Brian Soy on our podcast the other day, and here's what his definition of brand marketing. Brand marketing is awareness marketing. Seth Godin describes brand marketing as marketing that makes the world a better place. Brand marketing is an intention and trust-building exercise. Seth Godin will argue that both brand marketing and direct marketing have a place, that we need to use direct marketing when we should and brand marketing the rest of the time. I started this video thinking I was going to argue for the sake of brand marketing in most cases over direct marketing when it comes to the application of the two in our Christian nonprofit and church communication efforts. Most ministries I've seen follow or focus all of their communication efforts on direct marketing. But here's what I'm realizing as I talk. We're using both wrong. Even when ministries do use brand marketing, they're building brand around a single individual. We're building brand around the wrong thing, around the wrong person. Now, I'm not one to argue that we shouldn't be building brand in the ministry space at all. There's nothing wrong with building brand. I help build brand with people and ministries all the time, as long as it's not with the heart of competition. Building brand is necessary. It says this is who we are, this is what we believe, this is what we stand for, and how we want to work towards making the world a better place. And those of you who believe those things too can come alongside us, journey with us, and help us achieve our mission and goals. We're on the same team here. We're all working towards the same goal. We're all building brand for the sake of separation and competition though. But here's what I see in this ministry space, specifically and especially in the church space. We're building brands around our leading teaching pastor. When we do actually build brand marketing or focus on brand marketing, our behaviors in digital focus completely on our primary pulpit figure. Christian nonprofit and church leaders, rarely would you argue that your brand is all about your primary public figure, right? About you as the pastor. And yet, if you're following brand marketing tactics, it's usually in service of building brand around a single primary public figure. We're applying personal branding techniques to the church, and it's causing all kinds of problems. Our work is not the work of Pastor X, Y, and Z. It's the work of Christ. And our brands need to build brand around him and what he is doing. If we are building brand, if we are following brand marketing tactics, generally speaking, you're probably building brand around the wrong person. So what am I trying to say here? We started the video asking the question, what's the difference between brand marketing and direct marketing, and why the answer to that question matters for our ministries. Well, we've already stated why it matters. I can't say it better than Seth Godin. Marketing makes change happen. Well-executed brand marketing is an exercise in carrying our brand beliefs to an audience. This is who we are. This is what we believe. And if you believe this too, come join us in this journey. Again, Seth Godin says, the marketing that makes our world better is generally a brand marketing exercise. Man, how does that not apply to the church? We serve a God that is actively telling the story of the redemption of humanity. The gospel is great news, life-changing news. It is the only thing that can truly change the world and make it a better place. And yet our marketing efforts either focus on outdated direct marketing tactics that act as if we're selling something, or they promote and build a brand around a single public-facing individual. Pivot the camera from the altar to the pews, so your brand marketing spotlights your congregation engaged with the gospel. Notice I did not say engaged with your programs. You have to go deeper than that. Right? The visuals will be of people engaged in your programs and strategies, but the message needs to communicate how people engage with Jesus. What has he done to transform lives? The content should zoom in past the music, beyond the study, and through the sermon to reveal how Jesus is working through the individual, the group, and the community. Show your audience what you want them to feel. By all means, be strategic with your SEO. Run paid ads or use the Google Ad Grant. Call people to action and invite them into your churches and invest in your ministries. But our primary marketing strategy should be brand marketing, and the strategy should focus on building brand around what God is doing and how he is moving. Story and testimony are how we do that, right? And we need to strategically think about the content we're putting out. If your promotional content, your ads, your direct marketing calls to action, and your content that highlights and focuses on your ministry, your strategies, and your models and your statistics, if they outweigh your value add, attention building, inspirational, story-based content, you're doing something wrong. You've missed incredible opportunity to build brand around the work of Christ in and through your ministry and your people. You've missed incredible opportunity to allow your stories to carry your brand beliefs to your audience. If your brand marketing is building brand around your primary leader or speaking pastor, if you look at your content and your site and social platforms and find that a majority of your content is showcasing your events, your sermons, your educational content, you're probably missing out on incredible opportunity. Not only is this self-serving, it's building brand around the wrong thing and the wrong person. Direct marketing has a place, but it's most effective after you've shown the audience why they should care through story. When we lead with story and testimony and build brand around God's redemptive work in our people, then we can support that with our direct marketing efforts. When people see how the gospel changes people, when they learn what Jesus is really about, they are much more likely to respond to direct marketing and our educational, informational, and promotional content. I know this video might have come across as a bit of a rant. In most cases, I'm sure the intention and heart is not to build brand around a primary figure. You got into ministry because you have a heart for the Lord and you want to see his name proclaimed and known. The marketing world has pulled a fast one on us, right? We've applied worldly business marketing tactics to the church, and I want to offer an alternative solution or option. A veil has been pulled over our eyes, and this is a call to pull the veil off so that we can begin seeing clearly. We can't directly apply these worldly business tactics directly to the church without making adjustments and nuanced changes. Just because the most popular church down the street does something in digital doesn't make it the right approach. I want to challenge you to start showcasing what God is doing. I want to challenge you to focus your communications on how God is moving, how he's working to redeem humanity back to himself. He's at work in real people's lives, in your people's lives, and he deserves the glory. He's working in your church differently than the church down the street. He's called your churches to different things, and that's okay, right? We can build brand around those things, but it must be centered and focused on what God is doing, not on what we are doing. Our stories can carry those different brand beliefs to our audience, but notice that story and testimony is the thing that carries those brand beliefs. Story and testimony allows us to bring him glory. Story and testimony brings the focus back on Christ and his redemptive work. Story and testimony allow us to provide value without disrupting. Story and testimony will fill our annual content strategies with very little effort. Story and testimony allow us to create content contextually relevant to how people behave in the digital space. Story and testimony allow us to build brand marketing strategies around what God is doing rather than brand around our primary speaking pastor or ministry leader. Story and testimony allow us to create content that supports the doctrine of the priesthood of all believers rather than the current trend, which is the priesthood of the pulpit. Story and testimony carry our brand beliefs to our audience. What would it look like if your brand marketing strategies led with story and testimony as the primary and overwhelming content that your ministries produced? What would it look like if your ministries flooded the digital world with content that simply testified of God's redemptive work in real people's lives? What would it look like if 75% of our content production was story and testimony driven, story first content, value add content, contextually relevant to how people behave in digital? And then we supported those strategies with our direct marketing efforts, our SEO, our felt needs articles, PPC ads, our Google ad grant ads, our social media ads, and our direct calls to action to come to our church or invest in our ministry. God is at work. He deserves the glory. There's nothing wrong with building brand, but if we are building brand, are we building brand around the right things? Right? Are we building brand around the right person? Thanks for listening.